here we are back in the kitchen for project number 6 in our preserving program that we started this summer of 2020, and we have pickled onions today. So although it's a very simple recipe, I can guarantee you this is a very tasty recipe that you can actually do all year. You don't have to wait till canning season, okay? I do it throughout the year because onions are readily available. Of course, in the summertime or the harvest time, if you can get local onions, even better, or shallots. You could also use shallots for this recipe. And if you grow them yourself, even better, okay? So let's go through all the ingredients we need first. I am doubling this recipe today. So the recipe that I sent you makes two 500 ml jars, and I'm doubling this because I'm making 4, okay? So I have 2 times 500 milliliters of white vinegar, so I have 1 liter of white vinegar here, okay? We need a half a bunch of fresh thyme, so I've got a little bunch that I just picked from my garden. So I do recommend you use fresh. Fresh makes a huge difference with this recipe, but if you get started and you realize, you don't have it, you could, I suppose, use a couple of pinches of dried thyme, but I will say that fresh is way, way better, okay? 500 grams of red onions or other sweet onions. So I have a kilo of red onions right here, and I'm going to show you in a minute how I prep these. They're all ready to go here. So typically 500 grams is 2 very large red onions, so I have 4 here, okay? We have a few peppercorns times 2, so I've got just a little pinch, couple of pinches there. I have 1 teaspoon of sugar here for double our recipe, and then I have 4 bay leaves as well, and then I have some sea salt or table salt. So I've got sea salt, and we're going to use this to toss our onions. So I don't have an amount, but I will show you what I mean by generously salting them in a minute. Okay, so also I have my 4 jars. Now, I am going to refrigerate these, and the reason is simply because of the texture. I like them a little crunchier, so I'm going to show you how we salt them to remove the moisture, and that produces a much crunchier final result, okay? So I refrigerate them so I don't lose that crispness, okay? But if you want, you can put these through a water bath, which the instructions are in your recipe. As usual, you're gonna sanitize your jars. Now, I didn't need to sanitize these because I'm just refrigerating them. So I just wash them with soap and water and rinse them, and I put them upside down to dry off. Then you're going to, of course, if you're using the water bath canning method, you're going to need your rings and your lids. So, of course, our snap lids. So same thing, you're going to heat up the lids when it's time to use them. Just as always, in your recipe, there's the link for the step-by-step. We've done it enough times that you should really have it down pat. So it's there for you, but I did want to show you a recipe that can just simply be refrigerated. Now, when I refrigerate my 500 milliliter jars, I could, in fact, just use the snap lid and the ring to put this in the fridge. But I came across these, which I really like. These are made by Ball, and what they are is just a standard size plastic lid. So when you use these on the jars, you can put them in the fridge, or you can put these jars in the freezer. And I kind of like them because they're reusable, they're really sturdy. So because they're the standard size, they fit on the 500 ml jars. They also fit on the 125s. Sorry, these are 500, these are 250. They'll also fit on the 125s. So they're kind of versatile. This is the first time I've ever bought them. They can go in the dishwasher. I really like them because then I don't have to keep track of snap lids that I have on the jar in the fridge that, in fact, have not been used in a canning project, so then I can use them in a canning project as well. They're expensive, the snap lids, so this way the used snap lids I discard. The brand new snap lids, I only use those for canning. These I use for the refrigerator or the freezer. Okay, so not a need to have, but a nice to have. Okay, and then of course you're going to need your funnel and your ladle, as well as usual, and then you're going to need a small pot to make up our little vinegar concoction that we're going to pour on top. Wooden spoon is always nice, and a colander. Okay, but before we get into the actual makings of this, I want you to have a look at the little close-up video I did of how I prepared these onions. So have a look there, and I'll show you exactly how I got these. Okay, so here we have our 4 large onions that I'm going to show you how to prep for this recipe. So the recipe calls for 500 grams or 2 large onions, and as I've mentioned, we're doubling it up. Okay, so first thing you want to do is you want to cut off the top. So I've already cut that off. I've cut that off, and that way you can place it flat down and you can cut through the root. It's just a safer way to cut vegetables. You'll hear me say that all the time about always, flat surface, so they're not rolling around and it's not unsafe. Okay, once you've done that, then we'll just check it for any bits that need to be removed. So this has got a little bit here. This one's looking like it's got a little bit more. I like to use these beautiful red onions that are nice and sweet, but technically you could use any kind of onion. You could even just remove a slice of a bad part if the rest of it is okay. In this case, there's actually a couple pieces on here that are bad, so let me get rid of this. So you see what I did? I just kind of scored it so that I could take that away. Okay, and now this is where my eyes are going to start to run. I am super sensitive to onions for some reason. I'm going to kind of score that one around the bottom and then just remove that. Okay, of course, you could just remove the whole layer, but it's a lot of waste. This one's looking like it's got like a whole section. So let's remove that. Once you get into these thicker layers, I don't like to pull off the whole entire thing unless I have to, unless it's really bad. Okay, and then our last one's actually looking pretty good. Okay, so the easiest way is to just now place the onion flat side down. I gotta wipe my eyes, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Okay, and then with a very sharp knife, you can see I use my knuckles kind of as a guard there. You're gonna slice them. Okay, so you're gonna slice them as thick or as thin as you like. I like them about 1/3 of an inch. Okay, so you're going to continue to slice these all. You could use a mandolin if you wish. With a mandolin, you could even leave them entirely as circles instead of semicircles like this if you like. Okay, so you're going to go through and you're going to prep all your onions till you get to the root end, and then that's discarded. Okay, there you go. Okay, so you should have your onions now all prepared, whether you're making a single batch or double batch like myself. So my onions are here, they're in a bowl. In the recipe, I know it says to put them in a colander. They are going to end up in a colander, but I want to show you first how much salt I'm going to add to these. Okay, so like a lot of recipes, the salt is used in canning to draw out moisture. So you can see that's probably about 1/8 of a cup that I've just poured in there for a double batch, okay? And all I'm gonna do is toss these around. That is sea salt I'm using, but you can just use regular table salt. I tend to gravitate to sea salt, so nothing special. It's just what I normally use in my kitchen, okay? So they will come apart, which is totally fine. And as you're tossing them, you'll notice that you'll see some moisture starting to come out, and that's exactly what we want. And the reason why we do this. So kind of like the zucchini, we want to draw out that moisture, and it just helps with the texture of the final product. Don't worry if they haven't all fallen apart. Okay, you want to make sure, I can feel the grittiness from the salt on my hand, which is exactly what I want. That tells me that I've got enough salt in there. Okay. So once you toss them all, then they're going to go, and you can do this right in your sink in the colander. I wanted to show you on the video, so I did it in a bowl. Okay, so there we are. And then what I'm going to do, again, just because I'm not videotaping over the sink, I'm going to put my colander inside that large bowl, and I'm going to let this sit now. I'm going to let this sit for about 2 hours. So we're going to cut out of the video and come back. But while this is sitting, maybe you want to put a timer on, because about the last 20 minutes or so, then you can start to get your brine prepared, and you can start to prepare your jars if you're actually going to be doing the water canning method for this. Okay, so I will see you back soon. Okay, we're back. My onions just have a few more minutes to sit in the salt. So while I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna get our vinegar and our herbs ready. Also too, you could move these around a little bit while they're sitting in here. And for those of you that are not familiar with this, there's look, it's still dripping and there's lots of liquid in there. So you can see why we do that and how much moisture it actually removes. Okay, so let me move that out of the way for a minute. I'm going to get my medium-sized pot on the heat, and to that I'm going to add my vinegar. So I'm doubling, so I've got a liter of just regular white. Okay, and then I'm going to add my 4 bay leaves. In they go. My peppercorns, my sugar, just a little bit, just adds a touch of sweetness. And then my fresh thyme that I've already washed. Okay, so that's already been washed. Let's get that in and let's mix that up. Okay, so we're gonna bring that up to a boil and then down to a simmer. So the herbs and the peppers and the sugar are just gonna flavor that really nicely. So I'm gonna get my jars ready. So these again have not been sanitized because they're just going in the fridge. So there we go, those are all ready. I've got my lids are washed. These ones are all washed and ready to go. Okay, and I got my ladle and my funnel. Okay, in the meantime now I'm going to go rinse these off. So you'll remember with our pickled zucchini recipe, we didn't rinse off the salt. A lot more liquid would come off of the zucchini than it would with onions. It carries away a lot of the salt. These are really thin. They're much more delicate, so they're going to absorb a lot more salt. So these we do rinse. I know in the Q&A on the weekend, someone asked me about rinsing the zucchini, and I'd said you could rinse them, but you'd have to just get rid of that extra moisture. With these, all you need to do is rinse them off and just let that liquid drain away, that new, fresh, clean liquid. Okay, so I'm going to pour out our salt liquid, and I'm just going to use cold water, and I'm just going to pour it on. I'll just toss them around a little bit in here with my hands, just to kind of move the water through and get rid of that salt. Okay, they smell really good, even though it's just onions. I love the smell of onions, though. The salt almost kind of, I don't want to say cooks them, but it kind of, there is kind of a reaction there similar to cooking a little bit with the salt. Okay, so now we're going to want to let them sit here and let that extra water come away. Just so I can come up and a little closer to you, I'm going to put it back in the bowl and let them kind of drain in the bowl here. Okay, and then again, I can just give them a little toss every once in a while to move that water around. Or you could even spread them around the colander, because there's holes, of course, all over the colander, and that will just induce the liquid to move out there more quickly. I'm going to actually move this here just because my stove is hot. I don't want to cook our onions. So, okay, so I can smell this. The sugar is now dissolved. You can see the steam coming off of that. It's not quite up to a boil yet, but it'll be there soon. And then we're just going to simmer, keep that on a simmer to keep it warm while we're filling our jars. Okay. So you can see there's still more water. Actually, there's quite a bit of water. Surprising how much water has still continued to come out of there. So let me pour it out. And then just for sake of time, so when I say move them around, I can show you a little bit better now. So there's holes all over the colander, right? So if I move them in like thinner layers on the holes, it'll just get rid of that water a little more quickly. You could actually just let it sit and, leave it for like 15-20 minutes, and that'll really take care of it all. But just because we're videotaping and I want to finish this off for you, I'm just going to spread them around a bit. Okay, and now this is just about coming up to a boil. Oh, it smells so good. Even though it's so simple, it does smell really good. I love the thyme in this, the thyme and the bay leaf. It's really, really simple flavoring, but I love it. So, okay. It's actually really slowed down how much it's pouring out, so I'm going to fill these now. Okay, so these, if you want to put your jar over top of your bowl or your colander, that's probably your best bet. You do want to kind of pack them in I'm gonna do them loose. Mine, because mine are going in the fridge, we're not too worried about headspace and all that business. But it would be the same as the last pickling projects we did, and it's all right in your recipe if you want to do that. And again, you know, a lot of moisture comes out, so it changes the volume, right? I probably could have done, looks like I probably could have done at least one more small onion here to fit them in, but that's okay. I'm gonna do these like this. Now, the really nice thing that happens when you use red onions is the vinegar picks up the red color, so then the vinegar almost looks kind of pink. It looks really pretty, if that matters to you. We always eat with our eyes first, right? So it should matter. It should matter what it looks like. But anyways, it looks very appealing and very appetizing with the red liquid, with the little herbs floating around in there and the onions. I have also too, when I use these pickled onions, I've actually used a little bit of the pickle juice, we'll call it, after they've kind of steeped in here for a couple of weeks in the fridge, or after you process them. That vinegar and herbs picks up obviously flavor from the onions as well. And so I've made a few recipes where I've used a little bit of that flavored vinegar that's in here to flavor things. I posted a recipe on the group page last week for a chickpea salad that I made, and I used some of our pickled vegetables that we've done so far. And although I did use wine vinegar in the, did I use wine vinegar or did I use lemon juice? I think I used wine vinegar in that recipe. Anyways, the recipe's posted in the group page, but I actually used a little bit of the flavored vinegar from the onions as well, and it was so tasty. Yeah, you don't want to throw that out. I actually, when I'm done with the onions, I actually keep the pickling liquid and I use it for other things. Or you could even recycle it again and use it through your jars, especially if you're processing them. But you would probably want to bring that pickling liquid back up to a boil before you reuse it. Here we've got all brand new in here, but just to be safe, you would bring it up to a boil and then down to a simmer, and you can reuse that. It's going to get stronger with the onion flavor that's in there, so if you like it, that is something that you can do. So, okay, so here we go. We've got our jars filled. Now we're just going to add our liquid. You can hear that fill in all those little nooks and crannies. Okay, so you want to cover the pickles. And we're not as, concerned about this, obviously, because we're not canning it. It's just going in the fridge, but we want to cover them. So I'm going to cover them first, and then anything I have left, I'll just top them up. And then I'll stuff some of those herbs. So I'll make sure all of them got a little bit of herbs. And I think there's 4 bay leaves, so hopefully each one got a bay leaf. It smells so good. I'm going to get a spoon just to push them down. This is really hot. So I'm going to make sure everything's covered. I'm going to freestyle a little bit there just to use up that last bit. Okay. Make sure everything's covered. And I've got some herbs left in here. And I've got a bay leaf left, I think. There's one more that needs one. Sorry, I just got some notifications on my phone. You probably heard that. Forgot to turn them off. So there we go. Actually, you know what? There's a couple of peppercorns left at the bottom, so I'm just going to spoon those in. Because, of course, the peppercorns and the herbs and everything will further infuse the liquid with flavor the longer they're in here. So let's add them and then continue to do So it looks like we're covered pretty good with all of these. And then remember, if you decide to use a water bath canning for these, they just might be a little bit softer. So I've done these 4 jars I'm going to put in the fridge. And actually, let me put a little bit more liquid in this one. And because I use a lot of them later in the summer, I'll probably get some local ones. I might even get some shallots if I can get some local shallots. So shallots are a little bit milder than onions. They also have a little touch of sweetness. I do like shallots. They're a little bit more delicate than onions. And they are, you know, the light pink color as well. So they're going to be a little bit more milder tasting. So I'll see whatever I can find locally, whether I get some local onions or shallots. And I'll probably do some later in the summer. And those I probably will do with the water bath canning, just so I have them at the ready, because I do like to use these a lot. So there you have it. We've got pickled onions ready for the fridge. So with these, you know, you want to tighten those lids up to keep them nice and sealed or covered. And then I'm going to let these cool off entirely, because of course anytime you put anything hot in the fridge, it brings the ambient temperature down. So in terms of health and safety for your fridge you need to be 4 degrees or colder in the fridge. So if I was to put those in the fridge, it would just bring the temperature down for everything in the fridge. So I've had things that were perishable in there. So it's not wise to put things that are hot. Like this was just boiling a few minutes ago. So I'm going to let these come to room temperature here on my counter. I'll probably leave them for a few hours, and then I will pop them in the fridge, and I'll enjoy these in salads and tacos and healthy bowls and just all kinds of really tasty things, even on burgers. Burgers or hot dogs, they're really, really delicious. What was the other thing? I wanted to tell you something else. I can't think what it was. So, but anyways, I hope this inspires you to try this recipe. You could, of course, use whole pearl onions if you wish as well. Those are a little more difficult to peel. That's why I like to use these ones, and I do like the sweet ones. Anyways, I hope this inspires you to try this project, and then we will talk to you Saturday morning from 10 to 11. Please bring your questions, and ciao for now. Have a great day.